Good evening and welcome as together we explore experiencing death and loss and grieving mindfully. I invite you to make yourself comfortable and to give yourself time and space where you're at so that you will not be disturbed, hopefully, during this time. This isn't always possible, so do the best you can. There may be parts to what I say that could be difficult for you just now, as your pain may be unbearable and your heart breaking, but you are the best guide of what's right for you. We're all at different stages of experiencing grief and loss. And I invite you to be gentle with yourself, as the way you are grieving at this moment is your expression of your loss. Loss is part of everyone's life, and we all suffer loss in many ways. We are walking with death from the day we're born. There's one thing we're all sure of, that we're going to die. And the most uncertain thing is, when is it going to happen? Before we come to that final death, there are many small deaths, partings, or losses in all our lives. Like leaving behind the warm security of the womb to come to be born into this world. Leaving the security of your home to go to school. Leaving school as a young teenager to face into a very different world, the unknown world, where you make your decisions for the first time, maybe on your own. Then there's the whole world of relationships opening up. All life is relational or irrelevant, so too is our religion. This leads to growth and the development of new relationships, successes, failures, one step forward, two step backwards. Finding new life each time opens us into a whole new relationship. Each mini death, whether it be leaving the womb, or a breakdown in a relationship, or a divorce, an acceptance of a serious illness, prepares us for that final death which leads us to new life, where we will experience no more tears or sadness. All these mini deaths and the final death bring us grief. These mini deaths affect our children big time, who miss their life as it was. If there's serious illness in family, the pain sometimes can be so difficult, children can soak up the anxiety, the worry that others are experiencing or expressing without saying a word, overhearing chats, phone calls, etc. And for other children, there's the pain of separation when families need to make difficult choices, and this too can be very traumatic. Change is scary for all of us, but especially children. We know we overprotected children in the past, which we know wasn't helpful. Today I invite you to allow pain in as it arises, so that if there are children, allow them to experience whatever loss and grief is there. Try not to protect them. Children need stability, they need routine, and this can keep them anchored during a loss. And sometimes they may not say anything, they may not say they're sad, but you know and you sense their sadness. Children need time, they need attention. And then you may find a moment where there's a window of opportunity when they can express themselves, be they at play or drawing, walking, maybe walking the dog, baking, or on the PlayStation, but just being there for them. Grief touches us all, and often we are changed profoundly by the experience. Grieving is a personal process to losing someone or something that's really important in your life. It's personal to you. Somebody else in the family is dealing with it differently. You may be grieving the death of a husband, a wife, or your child, a sudden infant death, a miscarriage, a loss of your son, a daughter, a father, a mother, an aunt, an uncle, a nephew, a niece, a granny, a granddad, or a grandchild. You may be grieving a neighbour, a teenage neighbour, the loss of your classmate, a colleague, a friend, a flatmate, a parishioner, an acquaintance. It may be loss of memory, or a loss of a family member's memory, loss of your voice, loss of your independence, your mobility and your privacy, maybe loss of your job, loss of your profession and status. For others, it can be the loss of their home, their business, your shop, your farm, your car, your dog or your cat, your herd of cattle, whatever is precious to you, that's your loss just now. When we're speaking about loss, it isn't always about death. There are different kinds of losses. And all our losses can be devastating because they affect us. As we face grief and loss for ourselves and for many of us, it can be a scary time. It's a time of the year that we dread, November. We're not at ease with our sadness. It's hard just to sit with your sadness, your tears. Sadness about the relationships that didn't work out, about not having the life you wanted or dreamt of. Often too, sadness come about when I'm not willing to face what's going on. And often scanning the whole lifestyle I have, or whatever it might be, and what's coming up for me, my fragility, my own pain. Or it might be sadness around what I may be losing, or whatever may be arising that I'm going to lose in the future. Above all, whatever your loss is, be gentle at this time as we untangle some of the pain and the heartache, because that's what's there, deep pain. Bereavement is the event that your loved one has died, you've lost something, and grieving is the process to cope with that event. This time of the year is a sacred time. In our Celtic calendar, Samhain. It's a time to settle in at the fire and be with ourselves in reflection. The Celts saw darkness as the fertile state, full of dreams and possibilities, light and hope. We know the Celts believe that at Halloween time, our dead, our loved ones return to their own homes that they once lived in on earth. And our ancestors welcomed them back with the light at the window, the fires on and the feasting, and the evil spirits were scared off by masked dancers, the visiting neighbours. All in a fun way. The harvest was saved, and the cattle and sheep were home from the highway fields. The fishermen's boats were all tied up. The turf was in and stacked, and the wood was cut and all ready for winter. The people gathered in to celebrate Halloween night, the night of the spirits. And for hundreds of years, people have gathered in each other's houses and helped each other to grieve. The oil lamp lit to welcome their own back, and also to welcome the lost one. This November 2020 is different from any other November in our history. It's because coronavirus, the COVID pandemic, is with us, and there is so much change and loss throughout our world. There's a palpable pain and loss. It has changed people's lives in so many ways. We're all grappling with adapting daily into what we call the new normal. you're likely to be grieving the loss of your normal routine as well. Not being able to have your family for your birthday, or having your grandchildren a sleepover, or being able to go to your shop for the normal walk around and chat that you'd usually like, or have your hair done weekly. These simple, meaningful, precious moments are no longer on the calendar. Efforts to prevent the spread of coronavirus have to be there, and they have affected us. They have affected our jobs, where we work, how the kids go to school, how they play and how they don't play. Also, they have not allowed us to gather. These measures have changed how people worship. We can't go to our daily Mass. Our churches are open for prayer, but we don't meet after Mass. We don't have those. We can't go to have our moments with the sacraments. Also, if we want to go to seek entertainment or to the cinema, we're not able. We can't celebrate holidays together or special events. And as a result, the pandemic has had a devastating effect on us psychologically, causing us to lose a sense of safety, predictability, control, freedom and security. You might not realise it, but you don't only feel attachments to other people, you also feel powerful attachments to the places we work in. And again, sometimes these are not defined as losses, and we do feel the loss of them. There's also the anticipation of loss that can arise from just anxiety. What's going to happen? Will something happen to our neighbour or a loved one? And the resistance then from others. We're going to be fine, there's no need to worry about anything. And then there's those who dread the unexpected endings that can cause very strong emotions for adults and also children. And these are happening every day. We're hearing about them on the papers and the media. Not having the ability or time to prepare and be ready for a sudden loss, a miscarriage, a cardiac arrest, a change in a relative that hastens a death at home, a tragic accident or untimely deaths, leaving everybody stunned, numb, sad, bereft, devastated, lost, guilty and hurting, and sometimes so heartbroken, no one knows how and when to take the next step. Just unspeakable, palpable grief. Grieving takes time, and we all grieve differently. You and I, we don't grieve. It takes patience for oneself and your family. There is no right or wrong way to grieve, and no two family members grieve the same way. We grieve the way we want to grieve. So make no comparisons, just allow people to be with their grief. People hurt their own way, and allow them. The way you are grieving at the moment for you is right now. It could be very different in a few weeks. In Ireland, we are so enriched by our Celtic spirituality in our lives. We have a long tradition of coming together in our homes and the homes of the deceased person at the time of a death. And being with family members and telling the stories is so much part of our lives and our funerals. Sharing the good and the not so good stories about our family members, and being able to say them truthfully, no fudging. Our God is a God who loves us unconditionally. Praying for and with our dead, the lighting of the candle and the honouring of the soul and the blessing of it with holy water, and the sing of the rosary, and being with our dead quietly, families, neighbours, extended family, keeping watch all through the night, These are all of some of our lovely customs. We pray for our loved ones because we believe in the communion of saints, all our loved ones that are gone before us, our ancestors, there still is a vital flow of life between them and ourselves. Love and presence and communication reach through death. We and they are still in one community of life. In a real way, we can still feel each other and feel each other's hearts. Our prayer too is about our loved ones as they try to adjust to their new life without us and our lives without them. We are born spiritual, trying to become human. These wonderful customs that I've just spoken about and meaningful rituals still happen at wakes in our homes today, when families and friends and neighbours gather. Our funerals in Ireland are so rich in meaning and symbolism for many grieving families and so meaningful. They are always a source of great therapy for families, how we do it. It is also especially helpful for children and for teenagers hearing all the experiences and the stories about the loved one. Because sometimes in the telling of the story, we bring the person alive. You may not have known them. And we also realise, they're a lot like me. Granddad was great fun. Or I didn't realise Uncle had such a life before this. We remember how they were. This communion of hearts and minds is church in the best sense of the word. Pobal arara. People taking care of each other. And this is what can create great healing during these difficult times of death and dying. But for us now, COVID-19 pandemic restrictions have changed the traditional ways we honour our dead and our grieving process. For now, at the moment, with the restrictions, it's not possible for families to come together, for our extended families and our neighbours to come in and gather and go through that grieving process I just spoke about and described. It's not possible to have the large funeral where we have all our neighbours, our friends, extended family, and we come together and their prayers and our prayers together just help us through that awful day. It's not possible to receive the company and the condolences of those we wished to personally. And these expressions of sympathy and customs are sorely missed during these times of restrictions during the pandemic. However, we can support ourselves and each other during these days with the online book of condolences by texting, the phone calls, and of course the lovely letter writing, the mass cards, the emails, Facebook, etc. But for all of you tonight who have lost a loved one, especially during this time, we remember you and we offer you our sincere condolences. It's just so hard to mourn the loss of a loved one, especially at any time. But I'm aware of the long days when people are in lockdown, the long evenings, the empty chair, the place at the table is vacant as well. Especially when there are no callers or visitors, it is hard. Grieving and loss during COVID-19 pandemic throws up a whole new set of challenges over and above the usual grieving process. For some of you, you weren't physically with your family member at the time of their death. With restrictions in the hospitals or the nursing homes, you weren't able to be there with your relative holding them. You may have talked to them, or you may have had FaceTime and have had to sit at home and pray while they went through the end of life stage. You longed to be there, but it wasn't possible. Your loved one was cared for maybe by another family member or by a staff member from the nursing home or the hospital. And for those of you who never saw your loved one laid out after death, maybe they were coffined immediately, that too brings its own pain and loss. And it all can happen so quickly and so suddenly, and there's no time to feel it at the time, because the whole funeral and the whole process goes on, and it's literally a roller coaster, and you're literally going through the motions. But then it's afterwards, and the days, the pain and the loss really arise in you. You almost can feel overwhelmed in your heart. The emotions, it can bring up regret, and it's all genuine. How you are feeling is how you are feeling. These are genuine feelings. The unique circumstances of these unprecedented times all add to the pain we experience during the loss of a loved one. Grief may cause you just now to be feeling numb, be empty, be angry. Or you may be unable to feel at all. You may just have no feeling. You're just literally frozen. Grief may be causing you physical symptoms like trouble sleeping, not being able to eat, just being exhausted, and just being socially withdrawn. You just can't go there. The phone just continues to ring. Keep in mind, however, that grief can also have some positive effects. For example, you might feel grateful for the brave and the caring people in the medical and caring professions in your community or in the hospital, for the ambulance services, for the carers, the nurses, your local shopkeepers, your post office personnel, and your good neighbours and family and friends. You might have increased appreciation for all your own great relationships and have a desire to help others who are experiencing similar losses to you. As awful as it might feel just now, grief serves an important purpose. Grief helps you to recognise that you have experienced a loss and that you're going to need to adapt to what's going on, and it's going to take time. And also that you have to have self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. To support you with your grieving process, it is helpful to, 1, pay attention to your feelings. The feelings can change. In the morning you could feel very sad, but in the afternoon the mood maybe it can lift. Maybe you're looking out onto your garden and maybe, you may have a cry, and the next thing your dog might come by and just change that feeling. 2, think about your strengths and your coping skills and name them. Maybe you're a woman or a man of great courage, or a child who's got resilience. So you're able to be aware of what you need just now. There may be tough transitions ahead, but you'll cope. You've been there before. You may have had other losses. 3, stay connected. Don't let the social distancing prevent you from taking up the phone, asking for support, taking the text messages and reading them, reaching out if there's situations you need to get a check on. 4, create an adapted routine. Adjusting a routine to change just how you are. Maybe your energy levels are low. Maybe if you have to go back to work, having a shorter day. Maybe working from home is very supportive. Maybe it's not. Making decisions, taking time to go for a walk, and keeping your routine, your sleep routine regular. 5, limit your news diet. Listening to news just once a day reduces your anxiety, and taking support, just being gentle with yourself. 6, remember the journey. What wonderful memories you have, and allowing those to flood you some days when you're low, going back to great events, small events, and moments. They just hold you. And 7, take comfort in creativity. It may be being in your garden. It may be being in the kitchen, making a lovely scone. It may be weeding, not so pleasant some days, or it may be just being with your dog. training a dog, a new dog, whatever. And just these moments give you time to adjust. If you're finding it hard and you're not getting there and you need support, maybe seeing your GP is what helps for you. If it's around your job and you have changes in your job and you need support, you may need to go to the mental health services. Whatever you need, there is no judgment. And as we bring this week's work, our chat, our talk to a close, we know that we grieve emotionally. We know we grieve physically. It affects our bodies. And we also know we grieve spiritually. And so to conclude, can I invite you just to sit back and listen to that lovely poem For Grief by John O'Donoghue. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you becomes fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure, and some dead echo drags your voice down. Where words have no confidence, your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. Flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that was left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black tide of loss. Days when you've had your heart back, you are able to function well until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly with no warning, you are ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull and pull the rope of grief until that coiled hill of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of your departed. And when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal, and you will have learned to wean your eyes from the gap in the air and be able to enter the hearth in your soul where your loved one has waited your return all the time. And to finish homework for the next week, I invite you to sit with your loss this week. Whatever your loss is, a person, a place, or thing. I invite you to feel and befriend that grief and understand it is a healing process and it's going to take time. I've said a lot tonight. Maybe it's only a few words are going to hit you. Be gentle. Don't force the grieving process. There'll be ebbs and flow because there'll be ups and downs in your days and your moments. Know that you're not alone out there. We're a community grieving together this November. Join us next week to explore the stages of grieving and how each stage contributes to your healing. I invite you also next week to have a candle available to you or a tea light, as we'll finish with a ritual to honour your loss, whatever that loss may be. Good night, and thanks for being with me.